Hey up everybody, my name's Joshua Morrison, director of Johnny Moz's Lessons in Conference today. I'm going to talk a little bit about the political spectrum and how, I don't know about you, but I find myself drifting, ebbing and flowing leftwards and rightwards across this political spectrum. Say this here is Nazis and say this here is communists, right? I feel like my little Overton window is sort of, I don't know, about here-ish, right? And I feel like I'm sort of ping-ponging my way back and forth it, and sometimes it does a bit of that, right? Just kind of, not that far, but like, you know, it slightly ebbs and flows. You know, sometimes I'll see a bit of news and it'll push me leftwards. Sometimes I'll see a bit of news and it'll push me rightwards. Most recently, it was this thing, there was this school, and if you're in the UK and you heard me say school in the summer of 2025, you already know that's going to be about that bastarding woman in the dress, right? There's some woman some girl wore some fucking Union Jack dress to some culture day, and she got like excluded for it or something like that. She got put in basically excluded as like expelled temporarily. You're just not allowed to come into school for a few days. I got excluded once because I was chasing someone around with a stick in year 5. And I don't regret it, but that's what exclusion is, right? She got excluded because she wore a dress, and when I first saw it, it made me think of the Stuart Lee bit, where he's like, you know, these days, you know, you say you're English and they lock you up and they throw away the key. And they went, what? If you say you're English, they lock you up and they throw away the key. And I said, what? And he went, you say you're English and they throw you in jail. And I went, they throw you in jail? I said, they throw you in jail if you say you're English. And they throw you in jail if they say you're English. And it's like, they throw you in. He's very into his repetition, right? So it just goes on like that for ages and ages and ages. But it kind of felt like that's basically what it was. She was excluded from school and punished because she wore a Union Jack thing. And so I looked into it more, and I found some sort of more depth to it. There's some side bits to it that don't really get talked about. First off, when she did it, they had to give a speech about the culture they're on about, right? And she'd done an artificial generated ChatGPT written speech, right? And apparently, to get it to come out of what the speech was, you would have to have prompted it with something like, isn't it? You feel like you can't say you're English anymore, and they said that that's the dad of this girl. Sort of, because the dad's like a Tommy Robinson fan, he's very like right-wing kind of guy. They said that the dad was orchestrating it all, and now because the girl is doing some fucking speech for the EDL or Tommy Robinson or whatever, right? They're doing a speech for some like right-wing sort of anti-immigration people, and apparently because of that, that means that what this girl did is like wrong, and what the school did is fine. But I kept looking at it, I was like, hang on, when I was that age, right? I was basically the same. I thought that you're not allowed to say you're English anymore and all this sort of shite. And I was 12. They think that 12-year-olds or 10-year-olds are all like free-spirited, hippy-dippy, lovey-dovey people. And I'm like, I wasn't. I fucking hated all this stuff. I used to get in trouble because in RE, religious studies class, I used to just say anyone who believes in God is an idiot, right? And apparently that was offensive to people. And like that's a real story. I'll tell you one real story. This is going to sound made up, but I swear to you, this is true. We were watching Robin Hood, I think it's Prince of Thieves. I can't remember it's a Robin Hood film, but basically in the film, he's got a black sidekick, right? And I wasn't paying that much attention to this film. We were watching it in history class, so it's not much of a history class, right? We're watching Robin Hood starring Robin Williams or whatever, right? And I wasn't paying much attention to it, and I asked the girl next to me, because they were going through a cave, like some white guy and some black guy were going through a cave, so I asked her, is Robin Hood the black guy? And she like proper flipped out, and she was like, Miss, Josh is being racist, and all this sort of stuff, right? And I was just like, eh? And the teacher called the head of year down, and the head of year was talking about possibly giving me an hour and a half detention. And the only reason she didn't is because she kind of took a shine to me. Like me and her got on. But if it had been a head of teacher who had it in for me, I would have had an hour and a half detention for that. And like, that's ridiculous. In these detentions at my school, it was one of them where you just sit still and you look at the wall. You're not even allowed to look around the room. You're not allowed to get on with any work. Just stare at the wall, do nothing, waste of time. And I was like, if I'm gonna have to do an hour and a half detention because of that originally was one of the key things that influenced my politics going into the world when I was like an early teenager. And so if I was in this girl's situation, and there was AI knocking about and there was a culture day, I would have done the exact same thing. I would have gone in like the most Union Jack fucking coated shit ever. And I would have written a thing that basically probably even more inflammatory than the one that she wrote. Because her one's all like, oh, it's so, it's all sort of flowery language. I would have, I wouldn't have had ChatGPT, so I would have probably just gone like, I want just like, normal people to live here. And normal people meaning, yeah, right, because that's, you're 12 years old, you don't have a full sort of grasp of politics at that point. You don't really understand, maybe why people are here or whatever's going on, whatever reasons there are to all these different things. You just see Ed Miliband on the telly eating a McDonald's burger with his fucking knife and fork and you think he's a knob, Meanwhile, you see David Cameron announcing Brexit and you're like, oh yeah, I want a change from the norm. It feels like nothing ever happens anymore, That's why, there's a load of fucking idiots out there, just like I was, right? And probably still am, right? But that was the most recent piece of news that sort of influenced my politics, and it drifted me further right. Because on that topic, I felt like I agreed with the right-wing side, when a lot of the time I agree with the left-wing side of things. So that pushed me a little bit that way, right? And, when I tried to talk to some left-wing sort of friends about it, they were kind of just like, they didn't really care. And, they talk about shit that I don't care about and I try and play along, but they didn't care about the thing that I cared about. So it just goes to show that different political spheres just live in totally different worlds where what's a story in one isn't a story in another. They literally said, I don't care about this issue, right? And you know what, there's some issues that I just think, I can't be arsed with it anymore. Like Palestine, for instance. It's not that I don't want the Palestinian people to be free and all this stuff. I think Israel's committing a horrible, egregious genocide against them, right? Just to be clear. But all the fucking time, it's like that's the only issue that matters. And it's like, it's not, right? There's so many other issues, like the Darfari fucking genocide in Sudan. How about that? That's a third of the size. Or how about, the Tigray fucking genocide that was a couple years ago? That was larger than the Palestinian genocide. These things don't get a look in, right? They don't get a look in. And it's just annoying. And then I understand that the reason for all this is because we, as the imperialists, UK, US, Western forces, whatever you want to call them, right? Our governments are sending weapons and stuff to Israel to allow this to happen. And you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of the Bengali genocide in 1971, where West Pakistan first they murdered 300,000 Bengalis over the course of 6 months. They raped another 300,000 and they displaced like 4 or 5 million, something like that, right? Big numbers, right? In 6 months, right? And they did it according to intelligence. They wanted intelligent people gone. They basically wanted to force a brain drain on the country because they saw the country as competition, essentially. That's a very boiled down version of this, almost ahistorical levels of simplification there. But what's important is that the Nixon administration sort of looked at it and was like, yeah, the West Pakistan is doing a brilliant job handling the situation, right? The same way that they're going on about how Israel now is doing a good job of handling the situation. So it really reminds me of that. So, they say that history repeats itself. And, I bet in 1971 no one gave a toss about the fucking Bengalis, the same way that realistically there's either the people that really, 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 really care about Palestine, and there's people that don't give a shit, right? And there's no one in the middle. I feel like I'm sort of in the middle where I'm on the periphery looking in at this horrible injustice, right? And seeing that in the future it's probably going to go down as like a horrible, horrible thing, right? But at the same time, I feel like I can't do anything about it. If I donated £1,000 to Palestine, right, it wouldn't do anything, right? And that money can be more useful going towards some local issue, right? I'd rather donate £1,000 to some issue where I can make a difference with £1,000 rather than just chucking another few notes on a burning pile, right? That's how I see it anyway. This video is going to go down a storm, isn't it? But yeah, the point I was making was that I feel like political opinions should ebb and flow slightly. You shouldn't just remain fixed in one key spot on the political spectrum, right? You should let things influence your thought process, right? You should, and make sure that you get your propaganda from multiple different sources, and try and come up with your own thoughts on it, you know, rather than just following the herd. And I know that's like bog standard advice, but I feel like it gets lost now because everyone's following different herds. There's so many herds to follow that it's more about just choosing what herd to follow, and that's the decision. I sound like such an enlightened centrist when I say this, but I'm not like an enlightened centrist. I do think that I am on the left side of things, but say this is the whole political spectrum, right? Hang on, there's a good thing here. So this is the political spectrum, right? This is me. Actually, no, this is the middle, right? I feel like this is me. Does that make sense? This is full-on communism, this is full-on Nazism, right? I like to think I'm somewhere around here, but at the moment I feel like I'm somewhere more around there, right? And, you know, I don't have any goal, I don't have any ideal place to be. It's not like getting to there is the end state, or like getting to here is the end state, right? There's no ideal place to be on this spectrum, right? Because it depends on your values, doesn't it? I mean, I inherently disagree with the values of people on this side, right? But they don't. They think that they're completely in the right. So all we can do across time is just try and hope that the policies that are enacted by the people on this side benefit so many people that some of the people on this side will come over. Because we're not going to be able to force these people over. That's not going to work. Same way that they can't force us over. It doesn't work. And now it's become an us versus them thing, right? And it's going to remain that as long as the internet sits here dividing us according to our fucking beliefs. And I don't know. I feel like what's important here is, first off, this sounds like a fucking Ground News advert, but it's not. I'm not sponsored by Ground News. So fuck it, Sodom. Yeah, they're knobheads, why not? Because they're not giving me money. If they gave me some money though, sure, I'd do a sponsorship for them. But anyway, yeah, it's just a pain in the ass. I find it interesting how politics can influence one's mental state. I find that the less political I am, the happier I am. And other people might be the other way around. Like, you know, people that feel like they're making a difference, or they're improving the world. And so they become politically inclined, and that makes them happier. I feel like me becoming more politically inclined just gets me angry about stuff that I can't solve. And so I try and stay out of it as best as I can, whilst also not, you know, letting my silence be a condoning of injustice out there, you know, like. So that's kind of it, really. You know, it's important to make sure that people know where you stand and what your morals are, what your beliefs are, right? Because there's a lot of people out there that will hide behind humour, they'll hide behind irony, and you will never know what their true opinions are. I like to make a lot of jokes about politics, right? But I think what's key is that people know what my opinion, like what my true values are, you know, that I'm down for, you know, basic example, LGBT people, yeah, down with them, they're all right. Hope they get the rights that they want and all that sort of stuff. I don't know, all the stuff that's going on in the world, I'd like it to be solved. That's so vague, everyone wants that, don't they? No one out there wants the world to get worse, at least I hope not, psychopaths might. Anyway, this is kind of going a bit all over the place, so I'm gonna end it there. I don't know, let me know what you think. Do you ebb and flow in the same way that I do? And if you don't, do you think that I'm wrong for it? And if you do, why do you think that? And what could I do to change that? Because that would be very interesting to me. And by that, to change it, I don't just mean suddenly I start agreeing with what you think, right? I mean, what could I do to, you know, become more fixed? Because maybe if I have a more fixed political position, that means that I have, you know, stronger values, that I'm more, you know, able to stand by, you know, and I won't just allow the tide of politics to just influence what I think. Maybe that's the case, I don't know. But let me know what you think. And what do you think about the political thing that's going on right now all over the world? Do you think I just said a load of shite about Palestine just then? I feel like I might have. But say if I did or didn't, what do you think? Let me know. Have a good one. Take care. Bye-bye.